It's meant to be enjoyed, and yeah. And I just found myself really rushing through it to try to get to the next leaf. And that's a big thing that I experience in my life too. So if you are like me, let's slow down and let's think about how our plants grow one leaf at a time per stem. Don't want any like plant police coming at me being like, actually, they grow multiple if there's multiple stems. I know this. I'm talking about one stem here. But anyway, I think that it's really important that we like sit down and we're able to celebrate our wins, notice our losses, and just like, I don't know, sit with that, you know, sit with these things that we experience. My nose is running. I'm not crying. My contact is kind of hurting my eye, so I don't know, it might look like I'm tearing up. I have yet to cry on YouTube. It hasn't happened yet. This might be the moment, and it's because of my contact lens. The second lesson that my plants have taught me recently is that failure is not the end. I think that oftentimes with myself, if I fail at something, I'm very quick to be like, oh well, that's it. I wasn't meant to have that plant anyway. And I think that's definitely something that bleeds into the rest of my life. Like if I fail at something, I think like, oh, I wasn't meant to do that anyway. And that's really the opposite of a growth mindset, which is something that I really try to adopt in my life. Failing once doesn't mean that you're always going to fail. And I think that's something that I need to remind myself of. And plants actually constantly remind me of this because I'm always failing when it comes to plants. Plants are always dying. Like I have an entire series dedicated to plants that have died. Actually, it's called Plant Funeral, and I've had 2 videos on that so far. But a lot of people in the comments are like, I feel so relieved to know that other people kill plants too. And for me, it's like, I feel so relieved to know that other people have financial burdens and debt and failure in their life. Their relationships aren't perfect. You know, work isn't awesome all the time. Like it's really nice to know these things. And I think that just because I experience failure sometimes doesn't mean that I'm going to stop and I'm going to quit, which is oftentimes my first reaction. I have a tendency to be very extreme in my reactions and emotions sometimes. And it's a pretty unfortunate thing when it comes to failure because I can very quickly just rule something out that I'm never going to do it again. I don't know. There's a healthy balance with that, which I have a lesson about that later on, but that's something that my plants have definitely taught me. For example, I was thinking about it with my Monstera Adansonii, which actually is right here. That was not like purposeful product placement, but it works. So this is a Monstera Adansonii, and I had one just like this a few years ago, or actually a year ago, yeah, in March last year, and I killed it epically. And I thought to myself, well, Monstera Adansonii just is not for me. I'm not going to be able to do it, which sometimes there are plants that are not for me, but this one I needed to try again. And when I tried again, I've had much more success, and it's been very encouraging to see this plant do so well. And it kind of reminds me that like every individual plant will act differently because every environment is different, every individual plant is different. My second time around with the Monstera Adansonii has really taught me a lot about persevering through failure, and I'm really glad that I have this plant as a beautiful reminder of that. It sits on my desk and I work with it every day, and it just is a beautiful reminder of that. So in this vein of failure and trying again, I have another lesson from my plants, which is sometimes you just can't do it all. And that is something that I have always struggled with. I remember, you know, when I was much younger, like in high school or something, I was constantly packing my schedule. And I'm definitely a person who says I'm better when I'm busy. And I say that at work a lot actually, but I think in a work setting that is true. Like it's better for me. I'm a lot less lazy if I know that I have a lot of things to do. But like if I know that I only have a few things to get done, I have a tendency to get nothing done or do like one task in 8 hours rather than doing 5 tasks in 8 hours because I only have that one task. You know what I mean? It's a flaw. It's a character flaw. But something that I have noticed is I tend to pack my schedule even still as an adult. And whether it means like I'm trying to be everything for everyone, or I'm not saying no to things that I know will stress me out, I'm really bad at that. And when it comes to plants, like tying it in with plants, there are just some plants that are high maintenance that are just not gonna work. You can't have them. And for me, that has been like a lot of Calathea, Maranta, just the Marantaceae family. we don't really get along typically. But I have one Calathea, a Calathea orbifolia, and it is so happy. And I would rather have that one really, really happy Calathea orbifolia over having like 5 semi-happy Marantaceae members. And I think that is a really important message for plant people to hear, because just people in general, like, we love to consume, and I think it's most important that we have healthy plants that we can actually take care of, because I think a lot of people are getting into houseplants right now with COVID, which is a beautiful thing, by the way. I love it. Some people are like being really stingy about it and rude, which maybe that's rooted in the inflation that's happened because of plants, but there are people who like literally gatekeep owning plants for no other reason other than they did it first so they don't think anyone else should, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. People who just join in on houseplants have a tendency to kind of go overboard at first, and I'm definitely a person that did that. I had a lot of plants really fast, and I noticed that I couldn't take care of a lot of them, and a lot of plants died just because of that. And so what I'm learning now is it's better to have less, because that eventually will be more. You know what I mean? Like, when you can really cater to those plants' needs, they will grow and they will get bigger and bigger, and you can share them with other people. I think that's really important to like constantly remind ourselves of in a consumer's market, that we don't need to have everything. And something that my friend's mom actually says, and I've never heard it from her mom, but she's told me this before, is that you can have it all, just not all at once. And that's something that's so important to know in plants and in life. I want to be there for every single friend I have. I want to have this really rockin' career, and I want to be present on YouTube 3 times a week. But that is just not possible all the time, especially when you have behind the scenes projects going on. And I just was not giving myself time to really consider that. I thought that I could just keep packing on things to do, and my list got bigger and my time did not change. Like, there's still 24 hours in a day. I still need to sleep for like 9 hours at night, which, yes, I am a person who needs like at least 9 hours of sleep, or else I am a terrible person to be around. So with that, I have learned that it's okay to say no. It's okay to give some plants away if you're overwhelmed, and it's okay to just not have certain plants because you know that they're a lot of work. And the 4th lesson, I think, is especially prevalent in a time such as now, and that is to find contentment in the little things. So I mean, this one's like pretty self-explanatory and kind of quick, but I just notice that a lot of the time, in those times when I'm searching for more and more and more, and like, what's going to be the next step, what's going to be this, what's going to be that, I forget about the little joys in life. And I was sort of reminded of this one day when I was walking around with Leo outside, and he really wanted to go on a car ride, and I was like, come on, Leo, like, I really don't want to do that right now. I have all these other things I need to do. But Leo loves sitting in the car with his face out of the window, and that to him is like the most fun thing in the world. And it just reminded me that it is so important to think about the little things in life, those little small joys. I think especially in a time where life just feels really hard right now for a lot of people, it's so important to think about the little things and the little things throughout the day that make us smile, and also thinking about what we can do as fellow members of this society. What can we do to bring a smile to someone else's face? What can we do to make someone's day better? And whether that's sending someone a message telling them that you're thinking about them, that's usually what I like to do. I have a few plant friends that I keep up with here and there, and I like to just like be intentional about checking in with them, because, you know, seeing what they're up to on social media is very different than sending them a personal message and saying like, hey, like, how are you? How's this thing going? And I think like just remembering that friendships and life happens outside of the internet still. Our simple joys should not always come from the internet. A lot of our joy should come from people around us, or even ourselves, more so than anything. Like, finding joy within yourself is so much more important than finding joy in anything else. And that's a journey. Like, that is not something that happens overnight. That's not something that happens over a couple of years. That is like a lifelong journey of finding those simple joys within yourself and being okay on your own. Even when you're in a relationship, when you have a partner, when you live with roommates, like, not to get weird here, but in the end, you really have yourself. And if you're not happy with yourself, I don't, you know, like, what is your life then, you know? So that's something that I've been really mulling over in my mind. How can I be most content with myself in the little things, and not so much rely on everyone else for joy and all these outside things, what can I do to find that in myself and in my personal practices? And the last lesson my plants have been teaching me is that life goes on without us, without me, and that has been really instrumental and just sort of